just for fun, to be in a longer. And there it is! Ball drive! Deep to left! Hockey has it! Takes it to second and short! This incredible season has another chapter to it!
And now they've got a call for Dwayne third and home. The ball gets away. Into score Rosarena. The Rays have won.
There's your Dan Johnson moment. Oh, my!
And welcome, everybody, to a special live broadcast of the Rays Rewind podcast presented to you by the Believe Podcast Network and also in conjunction with Channelside Sports as well. I am one of your hosts, Evan, the Great L. Bushman, and joining me as usual is my co-host, Drew. You are finally seeing us in the flesh because we're usually audio only. That goes on Believe, but welcome, everybody. This is a special live episode. We wanted to do something special for you tonight. We've been talking, Drew and I have been talking about this for a while about should we start to do video? Should we not start to do video? Maybe people should see our smiling faces. Maybe we should do that. So we decided why not do a episode specifically on the trade deadline and what the Rays should do coming up. Yeah, and this is our live episode, so thank you for joining in. Of course, you can follow us at Rays Rewind Pod on Twitter and also at Believe.com to get all of our new episodes that drop. So tonight we've got a special show. It's all about the trade deadline and all about the rumors that are going to start to swirl around in the next couple of weeks. But of course, I know, Drew, that you had a topic in mind that we should definitely take a deep dive into is Shohei. Should Shohei come to Tampa Bay? And hey, that rhymed, everybody.
There you go. It already works. It's good to see you, Evan.
Yeah, man.
And yeah, I'm happy to be doing the video. For anyone wondering why it took us so long, we just had like actual life things going on. I had ACL surgery. We both started new actual full-time jobs that don't involve talking baseball. So and I moved, so lots of things. So everybody's finally settled. So it's great to be doing the video portion of this. And also most importantly, the Rays have been not good the last couple of weeks, really. So we just had to change things up. We had to get a different vibe going. And switch up the mojo.
Definitely they've been mediocre and sloppy, and
I'm at that point where I just. It's that down part of the season where I don't know if they're going to win another game the rest of the year, which I know they will. And I'm just being dramatic and exaggerating, just to get my point across. But the confidence is not quite as high as it used to be. But anyway, so trade deadline, Shohei Ohtani. Yes, this is the topic I have been wanting to talk about. I haven't been able to talk about it with anyone. Other than my wife, she's been forced to listen to my.
Does your wife look at you when you bring it up like, please go away, please?
No,
shut up. I don't want to talk about this.
No, well, listen, I've been working her for a long time, and she is a huge Rays fan now. She watches virtually every game with me after the kids go down to bed, and so she's all for Rays talk. She does want me to say that she is not for a Shohei trade.
Okay.
She thinks it's too much. But for us to talk about it, so Shohei Ohtani, the reality is he's probably not going to come to Tampa Bay, right? He's probably not going to be a guy that the Rays, they might put an offer out there, and it might be one of those situations we've become accustomed to that,
They never make the big move.
Yeah, the Dodgers. Well, the Dodgers or somebody else, the Yankees. I don't know. Some other team went out and got them. Here's the prospects they traded. The Rays were going to have to give up such and such. They made an offer and they came in second, kind of like with Sean Murphy and other guys in the past.
Drew, let me ask you though. I think do you think, now obviously this might be a biased answer because we are Rays fans, do you think out of all the teams that has top 100 prospects, do you think we have the most talent to give the Angels? Like it's the most, like, let's just say hypothetically we've got a really, and I'm gonna go into a couple of offers that have been like dreamed up on Twitter, and I want you to kind of maybe grade them and see if you would pull the trigger on one or the other.
Right.
Do you think, though, like out of all the guys that we have that are in the top 100, do you think the Rays might have the most pull to make something happen. Now, obviously, the Angels have said, "Hey, we're going to listen, but we might not even not even trade him," which is
Right.
kind of stupid on their part because he's an impending free agent. He's gonna probably get, and they're saying 600 mil as a contract, and the Angels can't afford that. Like, there's only maybe less than a handful of teams that could afford him. Obviously, one is the Dodgers. Another one is the New York Yankees. And the Yankees have already said, like, he's kind of come out and said, I don't want to go to the East Coast. I don't want to go to the Yankees. I want to go stay West Coast and stay over here. So there's like two possibilities. Even Seattle could come out of nowhere and be like, hey, we're going to make a play for Shohei. Now, obviously, for some teams that get him, it's going to be a rental. But for others, it's, hey, this is a chance for us to get him and then lock him up for the next 10 years or so. But going back to my first statement, do you think out of all the teams with the most prospects, do you think they have the most pull?
I don't think. I think if you looked at it across the board, I think the Orioles probably have the most to give. Now I can't. I mean, I'm not intimate. I don't have intimate knowledge of what the Orioles' biggest needs are. I would imagine starting pitching.
Yeah.
I know that they've been linked to maybe getting a starter, the trade deadline, which I think is, for sure. But, as far as like a left-handed bat, I don't know if that's something they necessarily need. Shohei Ohtani would be huge for the Orioles, and they have even more so than the Rays, they have the prospects and the type of young major league ready talent that they could easily, I'm sure, swing a deal for it with the Angels if the Angels are smart about it. I think the Rays are close behind them. You mentioned the Ohtani might not even get traded. Obviously, if you just look at it from a baseball and a logical baseball perspective, there is no reason for the Angels to hold on to Shohei Ohtani.
Right.
They're going to lose out. I mean, he's not going to resign there. It'd be a shock if he resigned there. They're not going to make the playoffs. I mean, they certainly don't look like they will with Mike Trout out for a couple months. And I mean, it would be a miracle for them to be in the playoffs at all at this point. So for him to stay and then for them to get a pick 70 or something in the draft next year as all they get for him leaving, excuse me, it just makes no sense. Like, you have the best player probably to ever play baseball in the major leagues, and you could get, and I'm not saying the prospects are ever going to match what Shohei brings to that team, but you are at least setting yourselves up because the Angels, if they don't get anything for Shohei, they're not going anywhere. Their long-term vision, the long-term future looks real bad because Trout's great. He's hurt a lot. He's certainly on the, I don't think anyone could say he's necessarily at his peak. He's still very, very good.
Rendon's been nothing but a disaster for them, and it's eating up so much money for his contract too.
They got a couple pitchers, that are on the younger side.
Yeah.
Griffin Canning, Reed Detmers that aren't bad. Obviously Shohei in there, but he wouldn't be a part of that. So if you're not getting that kind of prospect capital back, then I think they're setting themselves back even more, at least with the getting prospects back now. They have at least somewhat of a foundation that they can bring up, and I think put them on a path to being a winning baseball team a lot sooner.
So you're saying he's definitely going to be gone by the deadline?
I think logically he has to be.
Okay.
There is no reason. Now, the only from what I have heard and listened to in other baseball podcasts, national baseball coverage, is that the owner, Artie Moreno, is not somebody that's very logical.
Right. And that's why I have this thought in the back of my mind where they're going to listen to so many offers, and they'll probably be good offers too, but they won't. For some reason, it's almost like they want to hold on to the Golden Cup until the Golden Cup is not theirs anymore. Right. And then they're just going to let him go off in free agency and just get a ton of money. And that's what I think in the back of my mind, I think is going to happen is they're going to listen. They're going to go, you know what? We're not going to give him up, even though these offers are just astronomical and they're really good. We're just going to keep him until the end of the season and then let him go into free agency and do what he can do. And maybe we'll offer him some type of money, but ultimately he's going to go to one of the bigger market teams. That's what I think is going to happen.
Yeah. So, and I think what realistically could happen is that they, the owner doesn't want to be the person that traded Shohei Ohtani. Now,
right.
I would counterpoint to that would be I wouldn't want to be the person that held on to Shohei and only got a compensation draft pick for him.
Right.
But you're right. They could easily hold on to him and listen to offers because apparently that's what they're doing now.
Mm-hmm.
And then hold on to him and keep him for the rest of the year and just say, listen, we just didn't get the draft picks or the trade package that we were wanting for him. No one was able to really meet what we wanted. And, we just didn't think we wanted to keep him here. And, he means so much to this team and we wanted to keep him here throughout the rest of the season and, allow our fans to, watch him play baseball.
Okay. Which brings me now to, because I know you were hinting this when we were texting each other before the show. It's like you're kind of leaning towards you want this to happen for the Rays. You want them to go full tilt and go all in to make this happen. Am I getting that impression from you?
Yeah. So
okay.
I really want it to happen. My one of my good friends gives me a hard time because I just love. I always fall hook, line, and sinker for. The Rays. For example, I was just like, there's so many reasons why Freddie Freeman should come to the Tampa Bay and not LA. He could be the biggest star in Tampa, blah, blah, blah. Like I get hooked onto these things. Whereas my friend gives me a hard time because he's very realistic. And a lot of times he's on the right side of this where, there's no reason to think that the Rays will actually go out and get a big name like this. And that's fine. I just think it's more fun to, get swept up in it a little bit. So Shohei is somebody that I've been thinking about this really for the last few months, knowing, not expecting the Angels to be a contender in the playoffs and thinking that this conversation would happen, obviously as the season went on. Really part of it is because the other trade deadline acquisitions that at least the names that are constantly floated out there, as usual, there's usually players that get traded that weren't being talked about that are a bit of a shock maybe. So not saying that there's other guys out there that the Rays could get that would be really good or would make a lot of sense that, they're just not being talked about. But as far as the names that are constantly thrown out, the Marcus Stromans, the Lance Lynn's, the Lucas Giolito's, that type of stuff. Part of me is like, do I want to give up a top 100 prospect for Marcus Stroman,
right?
A top 100 prospect. And because I'll tell you right now, we gave up, I don't remember what Joe Ryan was when he got traded, if he was top 100 or if I know he was a top-ish prospect in our organization.
He was one of them because I know a lot of people were like, and especially for Nelson Cruz, it was like, okay, well, it seems like a fair trade at the time, and then
now obviously he's done well, and
right,
Nelson, and at the time, I mean, and I still don't regret that trade for the Rays perspective because for so long there was fans always wanted them to actually go for it, and that was literally like that year when we needed offensive help or we needed a bat, a bat to put in that lineup every day. Nelson Cruz was probably the name everyone wanted,
But to me, it was a year late though. It was a year too late.
Yeah, and they tried to get him in free agency and stuff, right. And obviously didn't work out. But I mean, I didn't regret them going. Like I don't look up at that and think, man, what a bad mistake they made. Because Joe Ryan's done really well, and yeah, it'd be great to have him now. But I'll tell you what, when we got Nelson Cruz, when the Rays got Nelson Cruz, I thought World Series, like, no question. And certainly when the playoffs started, I was thinking, oh my goodness, like we're going to win this whole thing. So I know. So with Shohei, just with so Marcus Stroman, for example, is an example people bring up a lot. He's a great pitcher, doing really well this year in Chicago. I think that, it's going to take at least a top 100 prospect, probably a couple really good prospects to get him, because a lot of teams are going to be in him. The market, the teams that could actually provide the prospects the Cubs want, there's going to be more teams able to do that. So I think it's going to drive the price up. Would I rather give up a really good prospect and maybe a couple other players for Marcus Stroman, or would I rather just give up some more and get, and I mean, some more is obviously more. It's not a little difference, but
Right.
like give me the best player on the planet.
Right.
I mean, give me a guy that could slot in at the top of the rotation, right, with Shane McClanahan, a guy that you can plug in as a left-handed power bat, because I mean, Brandon Lau is not helping us right now with being a left-handed power bat. We're getting that production is coming from Luke Raley. That production is coming from Josh Lowe every now and then. He's cooled off. I know he hit a home run yesterday, but I mean, and Wander's obviously lefty bat. He's not really a power guy, and he's not hitting for as high as an average I think that I would like to see right now. But I don't have any doubts in him at all. But you got a guy that just slots in right in that line, that top part of the line too. I mean, it would just it just would be such a splash move. And I see a lot of people say, well, are you prepared to give up Kyle Manzardo and maybe Curtis Mead, or maybe a guy like Josh Lowe, Shane Baz, or like these high end prospects, at least a couple top 100 prospects. Heck yeah, I am. Like
I was on a podcast last night, and that the topic of this, obviously it's going to be up until something happens where it's like, how much are you willing to really give up? Are you willing to bet the house? Are you willing to give up the names that we've been hearing over, like the Junior Camaneros, the Curtis Meads, like all those guys? And I think a lot of people don't know is, if you give up those prospects, there's still a lot of good prospects, top 100 prospects we still have in the farm system. Mm-hmm. So, if you're going to have, I mean, obviously you're going to have to give up 3 to 4,
right,
to get Ohtani. You're going to have to dangle that carrot in front of the Angels and be like, look, this is going to probably help your team out for the next 5-10 years, possibly. Obviously we don't know what happens with trades and when the players go to another system. We don't know, but like, you could sell it as, we're going to give you these guys, and this is going to help your team out. And we just want one guy. We don't want anything else. We just want one guy. Here's our top 100 prospects. Here's our number, our three of our best guys. And here you're I think just a lot of people are kind of like, they don't know that our farm system is still so deep that we can afford to give away those top prospects. And I said this last night is, I think if there was 1 year to go all in with your chips to try and get the best guy, this is the year to do it, because you have the draft capital, you have the prospect capital to do that, where you can just say, you know what, we're going to say fuck it this year, and we're going to put ourselves in the best position we can to win a World Series. And I think as a GM, you have to take those risks. I mean, you have to. If you want to win the championship, you have to take those risks. Which leads me to my scenarios. And I want you to go scenario number 1 and scenario number 2. Okay, so this was tweeted out by Bleacher Report writer Zachary Reimer a few days ago. This is a proposed trade. Rays get Shohei Ohtani. Angels get Junior Caminero and Kyle Manzardo, and then Santiago Suarez. Those 3 for Ohtani. 63% said yes, 36% said no. Drew, what do you say for scenario number 1?
Man, I tell you what, the only reason I'm balking at it, and I know I'm sure people will be like, well, see, I told you, it's, you gotta give it. It's just because I've been following Junior Caminero for, I think, a year now. Just
his rookie cards is going up the roof, man. It's like almost like an Ellie De La Cruz right now.
Yeah, he's a stud. I actually feel like, I don't think the Rays are gonna do that deal, because I think they would probably say he's probably untouchable at this point. Because I mean, was he? I think Baseball America ranked him 7th.
Yeah,
as a 19-year-old.
Because you got to look at who's going to be the centerpiece of the trade. Whoever they're going to give up the Rays, who's going to be the centerpiece? Okay, so you say no to that. You say no to that one.
It's really more of, I would say no and counter with like Curtis Mead or Carson. I think Carson Williams is higher ranked.
Okay.
So yeah, I just think that, I don't know. I think that Junior Caminero, I'm not really quite sure is. I think that is probably, we talk about the Rays kind of going against what's ingrained in their in their way of doing things, which is not mortgaging the future.
Right.
You know, they want to win. They want to be competitive every year, and this kind of goes against that. I think Junior Caminero represents that being like for them to trade him away would almost be too much of them going against the grain. So I don't expect. I would say no, just because I don't think the Rays would do that.
Okay, so here's two more scenarios for you. Okay. Scenario number one. And scenario number one is the first package, and then there's a counter offer to this. Okay. So this is the first offer. Brendan Lau, Manzardo, Urbina, Wilcox, and Williams for Ohtani.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
100%.
Okay.
This is counter number two. This is counter. So low, same trade, but you're adding in Curtis Mead.
Well, so it would be Brandon. So it'd be Brandon Lau.
Brandon Lau, Manzardo, adding in Mead, and then Urbina, Wilcox, and Williams for Ohtani.
And Williams is Carson Williams.
Yes.
Man, that's having Mead and Manzardo, because you're talking about two like
really good prospects,
major league ready.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I mean, I think I still would say yes. You know what I would want to do though, as a counter to that,
give us Mike Trout.
Yeah, is, you know, because I think the Rays would be realistic and say, okay, well, listen, we know we're not going to be able to re-sign Ohtani. So, you know, because it's not a Freddie Freeman situation where they could put up, you know, 180 million or 200 million. It's like, no, it's like 3 times that amount. Yeah. So, I would try and see if, like, with the Angels, like a player like Joe Adell, where you got a guy who's kind of like one of those post-hype prospects, right? He was a big-time prospect and has not done well in the majors at all, at least with the Angels. And at least you're getting back a player that, as from the Rays perspective, you're getting at least something that is past the next 2 months. You know, I mean, you're getting a little. So I would go there. But if they said no, you know, we're not putting anyone else, or, you know, whatever, I don't know. Okay. Or maybe getting a relief pitcher added in, you know, so we can get a little bullpen help or something along those lines. I still think I would do it, even without all that, just because, like, I mean, I honestly, Carson Williams is great. I know he's really good. He's young. He's tearing it up in Bowling Green. I really couldn't care less about waiting for him. You know, and so that we, you know, instead of getting Ohtani, like, he might turn into a great player, but you know what? That is fine.
I'm going to take a World Series championship over that.
Yeah. Or I'll take even just a better run at the World Series.
Yeah.
You know, Cole Wilcox. Yeah, that's great. I mean, I'm sure he could be something. Urbina, I'll be honest, I'm not even familiar with how he's doing in the minors at this point. So that's great. Manzardo's great. But you know what? Right now we got 3 first basemen, 3 very capable first basemen on the roster. So yeah, Manzardo goes. That stinks because I'm really excited about him coming up for the Rays, but yeah, I'm fine with that. And then Curtis Mead. Yeah, that one's hard. That's definitely the hardest one. Like, if we're deciding between Mead and Manzardo, so to speak, I mean, I would much rather give up Manzardo than Mead. So Mead's definitely the what makes it tougher for me. But at the same time, you know, he's probably gonna be a great hitter, but is he gonna be capable enough in the field to be an everyday guy for us? I don't know.
One of those two guys, they're gonna be a centerpiece for a trade.
Which is totally reasonable and fine. And honestly, like, I would be more willing to give up a guy in the majors potentially, like, if they were like, hey, you know, instead of Mead, we'll give you Josh Lowe.
I don't know. Well, I don't know. Giving up another Lowe brother, though. We did that with Nate, and Nate's been doing pretty well.
Oh, well, and we're already giving up Brandon Lau in that deal.
Yeah, I give up Brandon Lau. Lau can go. That's fine. I think everybody's had enough of him, and I think he needs maybe to go out on the West Coast and prosper or whatever. We have plenty of second basemen anyways.
Yeah, so never mind. If Brandon already in the deal, in that hypothetical deal, I wouldn't add in another major league player. I forgot about him. But yeah, man, I don't know. I think, like, I get excited about prospects a lot. So it's hard for me to not or to think about giving them away, but at the same time, like there's been so many times, so I feel like where I was pumped that the Rays didn't give up certain players, and then they didn't really turn into much. I mean, Luis Patino was like a top 5 prospect for us when he came over from the Padres, and he's honestly, outside of like pitching pretty well late in 2021 and in the playoffs, he hasn't done much. Roberto Hernandez was a big prospect for us. I mean, he got traded for Jeffrey Springs, which was great. Don't get me wrong, but like he's not doing anything. Like there's just been plenty of prospects that we thought would be great that haven't turned out. So give me Shohei Ohtani over, a lot of those prospects any day of the week.
I was thinking about this. Instead of giving up a couple prospects, maybe 2 major league ready guys. And Walls always comes up in that scenario. Because you could give them Walls and Lau too. And then maybe a prospect or 2. Not one of the big prospects. You may have to give up 1, but not 2.
I just don't know. Here's my concern is I don't know a player like Taylor Walls. I don't know how much other teams would value him.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about the value about Brandon Lau right now because it's so low right now. I mean, if he didn't come into the season the way he did, and obviously with his injuries this past season too, it's like now his stock is plummeted where it's like, oh, you're really trying to put Lau in this deal? I mean, do you have anybody else? Because it's like we don't really. I'm sure teams will maybe think about him, but not like the way they did when he was hitting like 40 dingers or whatever. So,
right.
What is your dream? What is your trade scenario to get Ohtani over here?
Brandon Lau for Shohei Ohtani, straight up.
That's every Rays fan's dream.
I think honestly, that any trade, I don't, the prospects don't matter to me as much. I think kind of like what I said earlier though, I don't want Junior Caminero in there.
Yeah.
He's just the potential of him. I think for knowing that Shohei is a 2-month rental, I think that's for me probably where I draw the line on the prospects. So I would tell you as far as what prospects are included, Meade, Manzardo, Carson Williams, JJ Goss, Cole Wilcox, like these names that we hear about a lot. Any grouping of those is honestly would be fine for me. I think Meade's probably that second guy that, I mean, I don't know if it's realistic to think that we could do a deal without Meade if we're not putting in Caminero, but Meade's kind of that second guy I would be a little more hesitant about giving up just because he just has looked so great since coming back from his injury in AAA. And I know the Rays, I don't know if you remember, but Jeff Passan put out there in spring training, like in the last week of spring training, that the Rays were exploring long-term deal with him.
Yeah.
So,
I think so.
obviously the Rays are.
Speaking about Passan, did you see he's broke his back?
Yeah.
I saw tweeted out yesterday. I'm like, geez,
I saw that.
Jets on the IL right now. That's
I know. I saw it on ESPN. That was terrible. I'm glad he's okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, man. So dream scenario. I like I said, I'm not sure of the prospect grouping. I would just, if I had to give one answer, I would say any prospect grouping that doesn't include Caminero. And then from the major league players, I think Josh Lowe, as much as I love Josh Lowe, I don't know. I just think that the chances of him turning into a big time, I don't know. I think Josh Lowe, Brandon Lau are the 2 guys that I would say, one, that make the most sense that maybe a team would ask for, and 2, that I'd be willing to give up. Now, if like the Angels came back and said they want Randy,
oof, no,
I don't think you can do that.
No, I'm a big no on that. You would piss a lot. I think you would piss off more fans than you would, even though you're getting Ohtani back. Like,
I mean, I think that's a very reasonable request from a team like the Angels, because you talk about bringing a player like Randy to LA, and they could easily extend him and give him the money that he's probably wanting as a Scott Boras client. But yeah, I would say that a no on that one. So yeah, a couple of, like I said, Lowe or Lau. and then any grouping of those prospects minus Caminero would be totally fine with me. I've kind of just resigned myself to feeling very knowing that the deal would probably hurt because of what we're giving up.
Yeah, but ultimately, if we win a World Series, it's ultimately worth it.
But yes, and I mean, I would be ticked if they actually got Ohtani because I just moved out of state, and me getting to a game is much more difficult.
I'll take videos and pictures for you, and then
and I would be very frustrated that they didn't do it last year when I had season tickets. So listen, do I think it's going to happen in my heart of hearts? No, I don't. I don't think that the Rays would. I think they'll probably go after, maybe a Jack Flaherty, which is fine. I'm not going to complain about that. A Jack Flaherty, a Jordan Montgomery, maybe are kind of the two guys I would much rather prefer than like Lucas Giolito or Lance Lynn personally. But and maybe a bat or relief pitcher. But man, there's just so many things. Like if you just think about it, there's just so many things that make sense about an Ohtani trade to Tampa in terms of the needs it fills, it kind of aligning with the obviously Rays attendance is up. Marketing's been great. Like you talk about the biggest boost to marketing and attendance that you could have. I mean, I think they'd have to open up the upper deck almost the rest of the season. And I mean, it would be insane every night. I think. I mean, maybe I'm overblowing it, but I think it would be crazy. And then on top of that, like the Rays, they have the prospects to do it. They have the talent to do it. So, that's why you're seeing all these articles out now of like Jim Bowden and other guys saying, top destinations. The Rays are always going to be in that conversation because they are one of the
Buster Olney said it too. Like the Rays,
they're one of the teams that have the capital to do it, the prospects to do it, and they're a contender and they're at the top and they, need to get it done. They can get it done. Also, I think what plays into the Rays' favor is, their location and market, right? Mm-hmm. Like if you're the Angels owner, right? I think he's come out. I don't know if he's actually come out and said this, so it's one of those things you see online. You're not sure if it's real or not, but he's maybe come out and said that if they're trading Ohtani, he's not trading him to the Dodgers, which makes sense. Like you can't, even though it would be a really hard move to trade him to your crosstown rival. So he's not going to trade him to the Dodgers. Would you really, if you're the owner of the Angels and you're trading Ohtani, obviously you want to get a really good deal for him. But if you have a lot of good deals, are you going to trade him to a team that's in a huge market where you're going to hear about it you're going to hear about it all the time? Or are you going to trade him to a team that, okay, you're going to get a great deal because of the players they can give you, and it's a team far away from where he's playing now,
right?
And it's in a market that's not going to be, it's not going to be one of those teams that could actually sign him in the offseason, right? It's a smaller market team that would otherwise not be able to get him. Like,
right.
It's a much better, I think, of all the scenarios from the owner's perspective, that's about the best case scenario you could hope for if you're trading him away. And the Rays check all those boxes.
I like it. I like where your head is at because I think the only other West Coast team could have a shot would be Seattle, obviously. And
for trading
wise, okay. Not to sign. Trading wise, not to sign. And like for East Coast teams, I mean, you can even say every team in the AL East has a shot because everybody is 50 games. They're all running for a spot in the playoffs. I mean, now the division lead has gotten pretty hairy right now because it's now down to one game.
Right.
So, I mean, obviously the Yankees are going to be a big name that say, oh, they can make a trade for him. They've got, a couple of good prospects to give. It's like, yeah, they could, but the Yankees are just a mess right now. And they have so many other needs. Like Ohtani's not going to fix the Yankees.
No.
He's not going to fix the Yankees.
Can I be honest with you about something?
Yeah.
If Ohtani gets traded to a team that's not the Rays, you know where I'd want him to go.
Where
is the Yankees? Because here's why.
Okay.
They would have to give up Jason Dominguez,
Yep.
probably Volpe, which
Yep.
Volpe, I think I'm not saying he's a bust by any means. I mean, he's 4 months into his first year. He very easily could turn it on at the end of the year and be a great player next year and on after that.
Are you
But
just saying you wanted to go to want him to go to the Yankees just to see it to be a disaster for them?
I want to see him go to the I would love to see him go to the Yankees because they would have to trade up all their young talent that they have, right?
Mhm.
Dominguez, all those guys, Volpe, maybe Peraza, like they just would have a number of guys they would have to give up. And it would be, I see John Smoltz that came in a headline today said, that would make them instant World Series favorites.
No,
And
no, it
no,
would not.
it
No, it would
it wouldn't.
not.
It wouldn't because they have
No.
so many issues. They are such a slow, unathletic team that has no upward trajectory. And Ohtani certainly would give them a boost. You can't argue that he wouldn't. And yeah, like he might push them into the playoffs, and I'm sure there'd be a ton of excitement. We wouldn't hear the end of it. But you know what? I really don't think that New York's the kind of place that he's going to sign long term. So the Yankees are going to go out, trade all their upper minor league talent, especially Dominguez and all these guys. Say they make themselves even thinner, get rid of all their depth that they don't have already, and get 2 months of Ohtani. Probably maybe make the playoffs. Probably still don't win the World Series because they still have a bunch of issues, and then they're in an even worse position next year. So, I'm all for that. But yeah, I don't. I think there's a lot of reasons to think that Ohtani to the Rays makes sense. The only reason why it won't happen is because Rays management, even though they come out and say, yeah, like we have the flexibility to do what we need to do. Sternberg's given us the room to do whatever, as long as,
It's just not in our nature to make the
not in our nature.
giant ass move, which that would
No,
be. And I know you asked me before the show is like where you stand on this.
Yeah, I was going to ask you because I don't think you've given me a definitive answer. Like what? First of all, yeah, are you? Is this something? I think that anyone would say, yeah, I want Shohei Ohtani on the Rays. That'd be great.
Of course, I think
But
everybody
are
wants.
you willing to pay the price to get him?
I think at this point where we're at, I'm gonna say yes. If this was a talk we were having a couple months ago where we had a sizable lead in the division, like we were up six games again on the Orioles, I'd say we may not need him. We could just make a couple of small moves and fill the needs that we have at the time. But now since it's gotten so close now, and now you have everybody creeping up now is I want this to be the time where the Rays do make the blockbuster move where it just sets apart them from the pack, because this is a game that would be a game-changing move where now eyes are all on Tampa Bay. Now they've made the big move, they've gone all in where they haven't done that before, where they're now saying we're betting the house, it's our time, we're gonna go get that. It gets me excited because I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it, because I think this is the year to do it. You have the capital to do it. Why not just go all in? We've been wanting a championship for the longest time. We've gotten so close. We've gotten so close a few times. I think now is the year to do it. I mean, you can see what this team has done when everybody's clicking on all cylinders and everybody's hitting. We saw it in the first half. I think now is the time to dangle that carrot in front of the Angels and go, look, we just want one guy. We're giving you some top-notch prospects. It's going to help your team out. Your team has been, you've gotten the guy for a couple of years. You had Mike Trout. Mike Trout's been good for you, but you haven't had the young talent that you have and should have. Here's the talent that's going to set you apart in that division now for you guys to be contenders like you were back in the day when you had, the good pitching, the good hitting. These are the guys that are going to do that. We just want one guy. Mm-hmm. That's it. We don't want anything else. I think Neander, I think it's been a while. It's the time has come is to push your chips all in. And I know a lot of people on social media are like, oh, don't do it, you're going to set us back. And it's like, well, that's the part of the game, man. The part of the game is to win championships. The part of, the name of the game is not to covet so many top 100 prospects that you've got the best farm system in the league. That's great and all, but the name of the game every single year is to win that trophy. And I think now is the time to do it, because you have, like you said, like it checks all the boxes for the Rays to do this because of what they have in place, where they're at, it does make sense to me. And I was a little gun shy before because I've always been, hey, they've got the talent, they've got farm talent that they bring up, and that's why they're contenders each year. It's nice to be the contender each year, but let's be the contender that actually wins the chip. Let's be that team this year, not the team that, oh yeah, we got to the playoffs, we got bounced in the first, second round. Oh, we went to the World Series back in 2020, but we lost in 6 games. We haven't won one yet, and I think now's the time to do it. Will we have to give up a lot? Yeah, but listen, these guys are killing it in the minors. Sometimes when they come up to the pros, they don't kill it in the pros, and then you're like, well, we had a chance to get Ohtani, but we didn't pull the trigger on the massive trade. So that's where I'm at. And, he would make a difference in the rotation. You can put him as DH every single night. Like that's what you want out of a guy that's a once in generational player. So let me go to you. I know if we don't go get him, which obviously
fire me up.
Yeah. I think it's now's the time to do it.
Before we get to other players, can I say just a couple more thoughts? As you were talking, it sparked a couple more. So you said, puts the Rays on the map for baseball this year. I mean, yeah, you talk about, similar to how the Bucks, I was shocked when Tom Brady picked the Bucks, right? Because it's just like they never, like a player like that would never actually pick the Bucks.
Yeah.
And he did. And they were literally the center of the NFL universe and consequently the sports universe for 3 years.
And what did they do, Drew? They won a championship.
They won a championship. And you know what? They probably would have won a second one if they don't lose to the Rams on that last drive.
That's why the Rays should be like, you know what? We need to make a Tom Brady size move and do this.
Yeah. And the Rays would be the center of Major League Baseball for the rest of the season. You talk about national TV, just expanding the Braves, excuse me. I saw the Braves on the screen in front of me. The Rays fandom and the Rays brand. It's just incredible. So I'm all for it. I was thinking, let's think practically though, if he is on the team, and I realize we're allowing ourselves to dream and get swept away here a little bit, but so if he's on the team, he's DHing every night, right?
Yeah.
So, lefties, righties, it doesn't matter. He's DHing. So where are you putting him in the lineup? You say you put him third, because right now he bats second. He bats second for the Angels, and I can't remember when Trout was playing. I don't know if they flip-flopped. I feel like I remember seeing sometimes Trout would lead off or Trout would be second. I don't know how they did that. So I know he's batting second now, probably because, obviously he's their best hitter. So if he comes to the Rays, are you just slot him in at that 3 hole? Because right now we got Luke Raley.
Yeah.
I would imagine that's kind of where you probably don't want to move Wander out of that 2 hole because that's where you've had him all year. So you go Yandy, Wander, Ohtani, Randy.
I maybe even say flip-flop Randy and Ohtani. Maybe put Ohtani at 4.
Yeah.
And then Randy at 3.
Even just think about that. Think about, not that Wander needs it, but think about how many more hittable, the kinds of at-bats Wander would be able to have with someone like Ohtani behind him, where, you're just talking about he's going to get a ton of pitches to hit. But, you got, so I think you slot in Ohtani at the 3 hole, DHing every night. Now in the playoffs.
Yeah, I was going to say, where would you put him in the rotation? Would you have him as your number 1, or would you have Shane in your number 1 and then put him at number 2? Because I'm looking at, so let's just do a hypothetical. We're doing in an ALDS.
Yeah.
We're doing a 5-game series. I'd go Shane 1, Ohtani 2, and then Glasnow 3.
I see. I think Eflin's probably going to get. Well, here's the thing. It depends. I don't know. Because Eflin's so good at home.
Yeah.
That you almost would rather Eflin, because right now, if the Rays don't get a top of the rotation guy like Ohtani, you're probably looking at McClanahan 1. I think in an ALDS where you're hosting, obviously, because we're not going to assume the Rays lose at the division. This is not that kind of podcast. You got McClanahan 1. I would say you go Eflin 2, so he's pitching at home
And then
in an environment
Glass
where
now at
he's
3.
Glass now 3, and then depending on what the series is happening, you go bullpen day or Taj. And that's another thing is that I just bigger picture, I don't want to go into the postseason with Taj Bradley as my number 4 guy. I love Taj Bradley. I think he's great. He's pitching tonight against the Rangers and has, looked good through the first 4 hitters. We'll see how he does the rest of the night, but he is certainly a young pitcher that I am very excited about and think he's going to be really, really good. I don't want to be relying on him in a big game in the playoffs, similar to like 2021. If the Rays had just ponied up and signed Charlie Morton for $15 or $20 million, that rotation looks way different than us trotting out, McClanahan, Rasmussen, Boz in games 1, 2, and 3.
Right.
And then we're in a tough spot game 4 where we're throwing McClanahan out in the bullpen. And just like, I don't want to be doing that again. So Ohtani, just having him in the rotation would be great because now that's just making our playoff rotation all the better. I think if we have Ohtani, I still go with Shane 1 because I just think this is Shane's rotation. I mean, he's the guy. Agree. He's the guy. He's leading the team. I think, would it make a huge difference? No, I think Ohtani is one of the best pitchers in baseball. I still think you still give it to Shane.
Yeah.
As he's game 1, Ohtani's game 2. And then, depending on what team you're playing, maybe you go Eflin 3 or, Glasnow 3, whatever. But then you got Eflin and Glasnow for 3 and 4. And then game 5, you got McClanahan or even you could do like with the, you could do McClanahan and then Ohtani if you need to, just in an all-in game 5. I don't know, but like I still think you give Shane game 1.
I agree. I think with where he's at right now, obviously, the backspin was an issue for a little bit, and he's seems to be back in form. I think you put him at 1. You could even, you know what? To be honest with you, Drew, I would put Ohtani at 3, just if for a clinching game. Have Shane at 1, Eflin at 2, and then Ohtani at 3. Because if it's a clinch game, like for a 5-game series, and you're up 2-0, trot out Ohtani to clinch it.
And I'm sure it all depends on matchups. I mean, I really do think Eflin. I mean, not that I would say Eflin's a better pitcher than Ohtani, but I really do think Eflin at the Trop. I mean, he's proven it this year. I mean, he's incredible at the Trop. He's done really, really well. And I think that if the Rays really, thought that was a big deal or really thought there was a lot to that they would, they would probably, maybe they would do something like that. But, and I'm sure it would depend on matchups and, who they're actually playing. I don't know if it was like the Orioles or the Blue Jays or something like that, if that would determine who they start in the rotation in the order. But yeah, I mean, it would be so. I mean, just think, I don't know, man. I get swept up in like just the atmosphere of the Trop. I mean, even if they don't win the World Series, like let's say they get all the way, like just the excitement it would bring. I mean, I still get goosebumps thinking about, because I was at the ALDS in 2021 for 1 and 2, and I know that the Rays lost the series, and I mean, it wasn't it. It was a crap.
I was there for game 1.
Yeah, it was a crap series. Yeah. They had a lot of unlucky bounces and stuff in Boston. And for them to blow that lead in game 2 was tough. But like, man, that was so much fun. Like some of my favorite games I've ever been to. And even that, like seeing Randy he had a home run right over us. The atmosphere, just that whole game 1, seeing Randy steal home, seeing Nelson Cruz hit a homer off the catwalk, like, and then in game 2, Jordan Luplow hitting a grand slam to go up 5. I mean, like, I literally thought in that moment we were going to win the World Series. Like, I just couldn't believe it that this was happening. And so just thinking about like Ohtani being on the team and bringing that kind of excitement, and I don't know if it will work out. I mean, I would like to think that Ohtani, I saw an argument today that like, oh, well, they've had, the Angels have had 2 of the best players in baseball and they haven't done anything. Well, so Ohtani coming to the Rays doesn't guarantee anything. And I don't think that anybody's saying that. I just think that,
well, that's just bad management for the Angels.
But yeah, putting Ohtani on this type of team can can mean
You're
World
automatic World
Series
Series favorite. You're automatic.
in the AL
Okay.
for sure, and I mean maybe even more so than the Braves at that point. So I just think about the potential, the excitement that would be there, and just the memories that could be created from something like that. And the Rays could still go on a big run even without Ohtani. I'm not doubting that. But man, it's easy to get swept up in it. So I think it's something that I would, if the Rays did that, I don't think anyone would ever look back and say, I think it would have to be a really slim, like a really slim scenario that would have to occur that would force Rays fans to look back and say that was a huge mistake.
Yeah. No.
I think it would be an Ohtani injury that kept him out the whole time, which you can't predict anyway.
Right.
Or it would be like they flame out in the first round,
Right.
and
Something catastrophic would have to happen where it's
Meade and Manzardo or these prospects that they traded away turn out to be, the Angels are contenders in a year or two. I think it would have to be something like that, but that's a risk I'd be willing to take. I realize I'm not the one making the decisions, and my job's not on the line for it, so that's not something. It's a lot easier to say that, but yeah, man, I'm fired up. I hope, and I think you're going to see the Rays be mentioned a lot.
I can't wait, man. Trade deadline's coming up. It's besides playoff baseball, it's my favorite time.
I know. I get excited. I tell myself every year I'm not going to get excited, but then I do.
I'm going to be excited. Trust me. The deadline day, I'm going to be. Yeah, I'll be glued to my computer screen and on Twitter like nonstop.
Do you have any? I know we talked about Ohtani now for like 50 minutes.
I've got some players for you. I've got some players. We should before we wrap up, we should discuss some potential players that been thrown around. And obviously, Ohtani is one of them, but there's other players. Now you touched on a few pitchers like Jordan Montgomery and Lance Lynn, who's been rumored with the Rays too. But I'm going to throw out some names that could be available at the deadline. Stroman was one of them, so we could put him out of the way. Max Scherzer. The Mets are kind of in just a disarray right now. Steve, the owner said, "Hey, we might be just selling everybody off." What do you think about Max Scherzer Mad Max being in the rotation? If we don't get Ohtani and Scherzer's available, give me Mad Max.
Yeah,
I would give up a top prospect to get him.
Yeah,
and the Mets are run by a bunch of dummies anyway, so they would probably pull the trigger on a low level couple of prospects for Scherzer anyways.
When you first said his name, I thought, nah, I don't. I think you're starting to see. I think you're starting to see a little bit of regression for him. Although I know he pitched well just the other night against the Dodgers. The more I think about it, though, yeah, I would be fine with that. I don't know what he would cost.
He would probably cost a couple of top prospects, and I only say that because it's him. And you'd have to look at the contract situation if the Mets are willing to eat a portion, or if not all of it, or if the Rays are going to take on a lot of it too as well. And I say him because I'm looking ahead too because of the playoffs. Like the dude's a monster in the playoffs.
Yeah,
and to have him in that rotation.
Well, he's got World Series.
Yeah, so it'd be a scary rotation having him as. I mean, you could put him at the number one spot.
Yeah, theory for sure. I would say yes. My one concern is I believe he
still has a lot of money left on his contract. That's the only
a
lot of money
so
left.
The Mets would have to eat some of that.
Yeah,
I would imagine. And
but again, it goes back to our conversation before: is are you willing to make the big move to go all in and get a player of that caliber to join your team for a playoff push?
Yeah.
With Ohtani, you're getting the best of both worlds. You're getting a top-notch hitter and also a top-notch pitcher. With Scherzer, you're getting just the pitching side.
So here's my thing: is he has a player option next year?
Okay,
and he's got a no trade clause. So I mean, yes, it'd be great to have him. I think realistically, does he even say yes to coming here? I'm sure he probably would be interested, just because, I mean, we're the top team in the AL right now. I mean, you're talking about a legitimate chance at a World Series. I'm sure.
Yeah.
I don't know his feelings on the Rays as a whole. I think he had some things to say, if I remember correctly, about the opener.
Yeah,
Not
but he
some nice
complains
things.
about the pitch clock. He complains about he's like
Yeah,
the old man curmudgeon that doesn't
pitching
want
in the
baseball to change.
pitching in the dome. Maybe he would hate that and just hold out that he would get traded to a different contender. I don't know. I think it's hard. He's got a player option. I mean, what happens if? I mean, I would imagine the Rays could probably still afford it.
Yeah.
On the payroll if he opts into his player deal. I mean, what if like he says, yeah, I'll opt in because he's going to make 43 million next year. So I don't know what the Rays do in that scenario. I don't know if I don't know if I just don't know if like they would trade him or if they would be able to take on that kind of money and risk that happening to get him now. But yeah, I mean, let's just assume everything works out great, and that none of that's a concern. Sure, I'd be happy now. I'm not giving up Mead and Manzardo.
Right.
I think you could. I'd be fine. Like if they said, "Hey, we want Carson Williams," okay,
Sure. Yeah,
that's fine. No disrespect to Carson Williams, but we got our shortstop. I don't know what Carson Williams is going to do.
What do you think about like other guys? I mean, obviously, there's going to be so many names that are being thrown out there. I mean, obviously, there's been a few that have been thrown out there already. I'm not a big fan of the Lance Lynn thing. I don't think he's been terrible this year. Velocity's been going down too as well. He's got like a sub-6 ERA right now. I know a lot of people are like, well, you can bring him over, you can fix him. It's like, yeah, but as a pitcher, and he's older. Like he's not
a difference maker. Now,
yeah.
And like people
he's a guy you can put him as the number 4, number 5. He's not going to be the guy you're going to like trust when you're in a 5-game series.
I just don't. People are saying, well, we could get. We just need someone to eat innings, and I don't disagree. I just don't. I don't know if this team right now is, unless they got on a big hot streak like they did at the beginning of the year going into the playoffs. I just don't know if they are good, and I don't know if they're good enough right now. But that's just also could be recency bias too. I mean, they just haven't looked great. But yeah, Lance Lynn doesn't excite me at all. I mean, I guess if it actually happened, that's fine. I'm not gonna.
I would be, if they don't give up like a lot for him, I'd be like, okay, I'm okay with it as long as they don't give up a ton of shit for Lance Lynn. Yeah. Because you don't want to give up a couple like a good prospect for Lance Lynn, and where it's not that attractive to me because there's other names out there that are going to be more attractive. And to be honest with you, like to me, in the end game of things when it comes to the trade deadline, ultimately I think the Rays are going to make a small couple of moves that are going to plug in the holes that we need. We're relief pitching and we need a starting pitcher, maybe a bat. I don't see them bringing in any offense. I see them more on the pitching side, but ultimately, I don't think the big chip move we think is going to happen with Ohtani is going to happen. I think they're just going to make a small couple moves where they're not going to give up a lot. That's what's going to happen. Realistically, that's what's going to happen.
Right. The pitchers that excite me the most of, quote unquote, realistic options are definitely Montgomery. Jordan Montgomery is kind of the guy I've had in my mind that would be for me. I think he could really satisfy both the ability to eat some innings and also be a difference maker for the rotation come October.
What about Giolito?
Yeah, I think he's a guy that I think, the Rays, I think he's got name recognition. I don't know. I think the price is going to go up on him just because of competition for him. I would put him there as a guy I could get excited about. I think that the Rays could probably really work their magic with him and make him pretty good. I also think Jack Flaherty's a guy that
you were reading my mind because I know the Cardinals said Flaherty and then also Goldschmidt might be available for trade.
Yeah, Flaherty. I think he's a guy at the Rays got him. I think he'd be really successful.
Yeah.
And he's not going to cost you a whole lot. His money, he's had some better starts recently, but I don't.
Won his 4th straight yesterday. So
yeah, he's looked better. I know he got off to a pretty rough start this year, but he's a guy that's a guy that I could get excited about. I know the bullpens looked a lot better, and so suddenly the bullpen maybe isn't a strength, or maybe isn't as big of an issue as we thought. I know I don't know what the advanced numbers say. I don't honestly, other than what is presented to me from other people that I read, about the Rays. I don't necessarily know off the top of my head what kind of advanced metrics are showing for the Rays bullpen. I know that they obviously have been pitching much better recently, with the exception of yesterday's wild pitch. But I still think the Rays should go out and get a bullpen piece. Like I don't think that this bullpen has been magically fixed. I think that they've been able to add some guys that have helped. Jake Diekman's been great. Littell's been okay. Poche's looked a lot better, and Fairbanks and Adams looked better, a little more like himself recently. I still think that they should go out and get another bullpen arm, and I do think that Ohtani aside, I do think that if you're picking one side of the ball that the Rays are going to upgrade, I think it's pitching.
I agree.
So I think that's where I expect the move to be made if they make one move. But man, the offense is
well, we're losing right now, man. So
yeah. So Taj gave up a homer. I mean, I don't know, man. It just feels like that this team for a while felt invincible, and I know that this wasn't realistic to think they would keep up. Obviously, they were going to lose games, right? They weren't going to go undefeated, 27-6 or whatever they were at at the beginning of May. I know that was not reasonable to expect for them to keep that pace up. But for a long time, the team felt kind of invincible a little bit, especially on offense. And I'll tell you what, it's been a rough month of July, and they've been exposed, I think, a little bit. And so I don't know, it's tough. If I feel like they could add a bat, that'd be great. So why not just do 2-1 and get Ohtani and call it a day?
Yeah, I'm good with that too. And throw Mike Trout. So
yeah, throwing Mike Trout,
Mike Trout.
Maybe Mickey Moniak. I don't know, but they got a couple guys they could toss.
Listen, a
in
lot
there.
of people on the East Coast don't get to see Mike Trout in action, so why not bring Mike Trout over to the East Coast?
I got to see Mike Trout crush a home run to like the back left field wall, basically, in person last year. That was it was the game where the Rays beat the Angels on a walk-off air.
I remember that.
It was they had the infield in and they threw it home to try and beat the Rays runner, and the guy yanked the throw. It was a very exciting. It was like a 2-1 game or something. It was crazy boring. But yeah, man, Ohtani, I'm all for it. I'm ready to have my heart broken. So
I want it to happen. Maybe we can pray to the baseball gods that happens.
Yeah.
Sure. Ray's it's a rough stretch. They've got Rangers, and then coming home, they've got the Orioles for a 4-game set. I'm actually going on Friday.
Oh, you going to sit in Randyland?
I'll try and sneak in there. I got one of the $10 tickets just to stand in the outfield, so I'm maybe try and sneak in Randyland. But it's like this is if you don't come out of Arlington with at least a series win over Texas. I mean, well, and then you got to play Miami for 2, and then they come back into town, I think, right? Or is it the other way around?
They play Texas tonight, tomorrow.
Oh yeah,
4 against
Baltimore, and then
Baltimore, then 2 against Miami.
Yeah, okay.
And then it's 3 on the road against Houston, and then 3 on the road against New York Yankees.
I don't like this.
So as long as here's the deal, I just want them to get 1 win.
Yeah,
1 win in Texas to keep. Assuming the Orioles lose tonight, they're down 5-1 in the 6th. To keep the 1-game lead, maybe get a 2-game lead in there. Going into the series, I just want them to have a 2-game lead going into the series against Baltimore. And then, as long as you take care of business against Baltimore, I'm not saying the Rays have to sweep them or anything, but if they're able to
3-1,
3-1 would be fantastic. Baltimore's playing better than the Rays right now, so I'm a little nervous about it. But 3-1, that way you're looking at going out of that series. In that scenario, you're looking at a 4-game lead going into the next week of games. And I know Baltimore's got a tougher stretch coming. They got I believe, because I'm obsessed with schedules and looking ahead, and I looked after the Rays series, they go to the Phillies, I believe, on the road
Well, they've got
for three,
so
and then they got the Yankees at home.
I think after us, I think no, they played Baltimore for 4 games after us.
Yeah,
Well,
no,
actually,
So I'm
I'm
talking
sorry,
about the Orioles. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, the Orioles got it. They got the Blue Jays for 3 or 4
Oh,
games.
they got the Blue
Yeah,
Jays.
Blue Jays for
They got
4.
Oh wow, in
Yeah,
Toronto.
in Toronto, and then they've
Okay.
got Boston for 3, and then Cleveland for 4. So they've got a pretty. I mean,
Okay.
they're playing 2
That
divisional
must be
teams back to back.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you can just come into the Baltimore series with a 2-game lead, that's all I ask. And then, you're looking at a split. Even a split with a 2-game lead is not the worst thing. So I don't know, man. It's I'm
Are you getting a
the
little panicky?
I don't know. I mean, I've always I feel like I've been more worried. I've kind of thought the Orioles pitching would go away.
Yeah.
And they just seem to not be doing that. And so their lineup is becoming a little scarier by the day. Adley Rutschman's great. They have some really great young players too. They just keep winning. And so that makes me nervous because it feels like the Rays can do anything but win.
Right.
They can only win games when the Royals relief pitcher throws 14 straight balls. Something like that. So yeah, I'm not panicked. I don't necessarily think, the 1-game lead in July means that we're going to lose the division or that Baltimore's a better team. I think Baltimore's playing their best baseball of the year right now, or, they were on an 8-game winning streak. I think that, the argument that there's ups and downs in the year is valid, but
the ebbs and flows about this season.
And the Rays are obviously in a downswing, but it's been kind of a long downswing. This isn't a bad week. It's kind of been a mediocre to bad 3 to 4 weeks. So, yeah, I think they need a boost at the deadline. And it all comes back to just Ohtani.
I agree.
Oh, hey, here's one more Ohtani question I thought of the other day.
Yeah.
He's 17, right? He's number 17.
Yes, I think so.
So what does Isak do?
Oh.
So if he comes over and he's 17, he's number 17. Do you think that the Ohtani and like Rays management are like, hey, Isak, kind of like David? I know this is David Peralta is not Ohtani, but like last year they got David Peralta at the deadline, and Taylor Walls was number 6. Well, he allowed Peralta to take 6, and Walls went to 0.
Almost seems like when Tom Brady came to the Bucs and he had Chris Godwin had number 12.
Right.
He gave number 12 to Tom Brady when he came over.
Exactly. So, do you think Isak?
Yeah, why not?
Do you think Isak has to change his number? You think that's what he ends up doing?
Listen, it's just a number on a uniform. I mean, there's plenty of other numbers to pick from. So why not?
I think Ohtani. What if these are hypotheticals? What if Ohtani comes and says, "Hey, listen, I'm only gonna come in the trade if I can wear number 3." What do you do if you're Eric Neander and Peter Bendix?
Sure. Yes, we'll get number 3 for you, sir. Yes.
Well, we're gonna call Evan real quick. Just ask him. No, I think it'd be cool. Honestly, if Ohtani came and was like, you know what, I'll just pick a different number.
Let's do like number 99 or something.
I wonder what number he would. I wonder if he had to pick a different number, what it would be. I wonder 7. What would look good. What would look good with Ohtani on the back of a Rays jersey? I would feel bad. It would be weird to see Ohtani in the light blue, the Columbia blue with the sunburst jersey.
That'd be nice to see.
He'd look sharp in the throwbacks, though.
Yeah, he would. Yeah, the devil. Oh, yeah. Nice.
Anyway, all right. These are just things I think about. Musings, that when I wake up at 3 a.m. and I can't sleep, this is the kinds of things that my mind goes to. So,
and on that note, we're going to wrap it up here, guys. Thanks for joining in for a special live edition of the Rays Rewind podcast. Of course, you can check us out on Believe.com at the Believe Podcast Network at Rays Rewind Pod on Twitter, and also whenever you get your podcast from Amazon Music, Google Play, Spotify, and of course, Believe.com. This has been the Rays Rewind podcast. We'll see you next week. See ya.